Happy Thanksgiving from Bear With Us as the Bears get set to take on the Minnesota Vikings on Monday Night Football in Minneapolis. Nick and I will get you ready with a Thanksgiving buffet of stats, analysis, breakdowns, and more on this episode of Bear With Us. What's going on, everybody? My name is Robert Schmitz, editor-in-chief of the Bears blog, here as always with my co-host Nick Whalen of Football Guys for another episode of your favorite Chicago Bears podcast, Bear With Us. Nick, how you doing? We're recording on Wednesday, but I think this is going to come out near Thursday, so happy Thanksgiving, Nick. Happy
Yeah,
Thanksgiving.
man. Yeah. I'm still traveling, not my normal setup, and I certainly have my favorites for Thanksgiving, Robert. But I'm curious to start with, what are some of your favorite things to eat on Thanksgiving?
The turkey. Everybody hates on the turkey,
You're
but
a turkey
that
guy.
dark meat turkey is delicious. And recently my parents have gotten so I'm probably 29, but I still go over most of the time to hang out with my parents on Thanksgiving. And my mom used to cook this massive buffet of Thanksgiving dinner before she realized that 8 hours of cooking for 45 to an hour and a half of eating and then 3 hours of cleaning just didn't feel worth it. So we started just like grilling steaks and whatnot. But there is this part in my soul that is like, oh, but that turkey kind of goes off. And I think I'm the only one in America that thinks that way. The stuffing is the other one that I'm like, oh yeah, that stuff rules. But what about
Mhm.
you?
So hold on. Are you the stuffing so it's in the bird, or are you the dressing so it's made outside the bird?
Oh, I guess it would be dressing, right?
Okay.
If it was stuffed, I think I would really enjoy it. That sounds awesome. I would do that myself if I got the
Mhm.
chance. But I guess I've never tried it. What about
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. Stuffing is my favorite because I feel like it gets a little bit more moisture and flavor going on there. I like sweet potato pie. I think that's a good
Oh
one.
yeah,
The turkey I struggle with, Robert, because it can get dry, and then you're like,
sure.
but some
What
people they get nice with it. So
was gonna say?
our
What if I
owner,
said cook it better? Right?
yeah, exactly, yeah. Our
Like
owner at Football Guys, Joe Bryant, he infused like Coca-Cola and like
okay,
marinated within the
okay.
turkey. So I'm curious how that would taste.
I am too. I mean, there's so many things that people do with food that are just outstanding. Like the first time I heard about like what it was, a beer battered stuff. Like you get beer battered fried chicken, etc. I was like, who thought of this? Who thought this was a good idea? Why does it work? No, it's beer battered like barbecue stuff. And as a Texan, we get all kinds of really delicious barbecue. Now it's the wet stuff, so that's just what I've grown up with, right?
Right.
Like we don't get the Kansas City dry rubs or anything like that. But we got a couple places in Dallas, for instance. I mean, I could rattle them off if anybody's a Texan that are just outrageous barbecue places. And the things people do with it is insane. Which, speaking of, okay, as a natural born Midwesterner, what is the spice tolerance like in the Midwest? Like, if you were going to give me the average spice tolerance,
It's not high. It's
seriously?
probably it's probably medium range. But I mean, like, it's not like Indian food, is like
Oh
here,
yeah,
you know what I mean? And
oh
then
yeah.
there's probably you guys, we're probably somewhere in here. We're probably low middle is my guess.
No, I get you. One other piece to living in Texas that just gets funny is that I mean, you go to a Mexican restaurant, they want to put jalapenos and habanero peppers on nearly everything, right? And then you go to a barbecue place and they want to give you 14 jalapenos and a raw onion most of the time. And so you just get used to it. And I'm thinking out about like the stuffing in Texas is generally pretty onion heavy, like among other spices, but it just made me think like
I'm
I throw
I'm
Tabasco sauce.
sweating thinking about that, man.
I love it. I love just sweating out the pores as I eat something that is setting my intestines on fire. And that's just me.
Well, something else is making me sweat, Robert, okay? As we dive into this game here, I'm
Killer
burning on
segue.
something. Okay, I'm burning on something.
Killer segue.
So I watched all 22, you did as well, and, there's something that just bothers me from a schematic thing, and this is, again, as a coach, okay? There's certain things you do and don't do, okay? You set up your players for good plays or good situations so they can, be productive, and you get them away from bad ones. There were so many times in this game where I saw the Lions running in positive situations, in positive, double teams, like a duo, right? They're double teaming up to the backers, they're getting movement, and then they're running it with 6 guys in the box. The last run with David Montgomery, by the way, the Bears are man coverage, and basically, there's no one in an A gap, and then there's Eddie Jackson about 7 yards deep. And I'm like, that's your answer? And then you see the Bears running against 8-man fronts consistently throughout the game when they need to get rushing yardage. And I'm like, is this even smart? Because in those situations, you pass because it's one-on-one with DJ Moore and anyone at corner for Detroit who's bad versus, okay, 7 guys in the box. Okay, we'll read one guy with Justin Fields and it'll be our blockers on, 6 defenders. Like make it make sense, Robert, because to me, they set up the Bears to fail in the run game consistently, and the Bears failed to stop the Detroit run game consistently as well.
Well, okay, so it's funny you say this because, all right, so everybody's heard the joke about how 15-year-olds with a Madden controller generally have better time management skills than most head coaches. Everybody's heard this joke. But
Mhm.
one of the other things that I think we learned in Madden when we were younger, look, lessons from Madden, right? You could practically make it a series. But
Yeah.
Nick, the moment you start trying to keep your lead is the moment you begin to lose the game in
Yep.
Madden, in real football. And the Bears, I mean, gosh, you could say that they started doing this as soon as they got to 23-14. They began to focus on trying to not lose the game. Even that long drive where they controlled the clock all the way down the field, that
Mhm.
drive got extended very early by a pretty ticky-tack defensive
Oh,
holding call on
they
Cole
got
Kmet.
lucky.
I mean, and if it was a wide receiver, it's a hold. Let's be so real. But it's a tight end. Tight ends tend to battering ram their way through DBs
Mhm.
all the time. I'm almost surprised that the DB got punished for it on that specific play, and it ended up breaking open a drive where the Bears were able to eat nearly 9 minutes. But to your point, the Bears seemed as if they got the edict to run the ball. And I'm surprised with the way that they ran the ball in some of these cases, just because you talk about 8-man boxes. But I mean, Nick, you go and you look at the second to last drive, the Bears are using short and long motion to move Mercedes Lewis all over the line of scrimmage to change up the run fits for the Lions. And they were able to, I'm not going to say every run was perfect, but they at least moved the ball on more plays. Then in the
Yep.
second drive, no motion. We're just going to line up and run our 8 against your 9. And in a shocking twist, that did not work.
Well,
And
and it was inside zone. There were no double teams, and
no,
if it was our Feeney, and he gave just a little forearm shiver basically to, "Okay, Nate Davis, you got him." He goes up, and then you see Detroit, and they're like manhandling, moving back Dexter and Billings and whomever on a double team, and obviously Edmonds doesn't, he doesn't come up as quickly because he's a past linebacker, and it's just like
oh yeah.
that's coaching, that's scouting.
And pulling from history, you remember that period between about 2014 to 2019 where the NFL, college football, everybody collectively realized that running it up the gut on 4th and 1 is a failing proposition because
Mhm.
you'd swear that it failed more times than it succeeded. Like I
Yep.
can remember some horrible, oh man, I'm going to dig up a bad memory. You remember the absolutely abysmal 2019 week 1 Bears game against the Packers with that Cordero Patterson like run up the gut. I think there was more than one, but I remember one in particular that lost like 3 yards because James Daniels blows his block immediately and then just gets eaten. Oh, what I'm trying to get at here, modern defenders are good enough, they are talented enough that if we don't respect that they can win one gap when they know we're running the ball, we are being foolish.
Yep.
Like it is incredibly difficult to ask even a really good rushing team to dig out nearly 9 guys, 8 guys in many cases, to create any running room at all, let alone when they know it's coming. I mean, I'm not saying you have to run play action, but can't we at least pull DJ Moore across the formation with that snap motion? Can't we at least send, say, Cole Kmet or Mercedes Lewis across the formation to set up a pin and pull toss outside? Not everything
Mhm.
needs to be toss running game,
Exactly.
but if we don't at least threaten that we could go somewhere else other than up the middle, then yeah, they're going to tune up and you end up in 3rd and 9 after 2 blinks of the eye, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and how many times did we run that split zone, right, where your tight end comes across the formation and kicks out the backside D end, successfully or unsuccessfully
I was
called
about to say,
because
did they? Did they
right,
kick
right.
out the
I mean,
backside D end?
they ran the play, but what do you do? That's a sift block, right? And that sift block, how many times have you seen that where they bluff that and then they leak out into the flat on that easy play action? You can dump it to him. He's got another crosser, and then he's got to clear out. It's like a little float over there, or the quarterback can run. Like that would be easy because at the end it was we need to take time off the clock. We want to move the ball and get first downs. Well, feels like the Bears only want to take time off the clock, even when they drove down when they're up 23-14 after Fields' long run. What did they do? Run, run, run on 3rd and 7, kick field goal. Like they didn't even want to convert down there. It's like do things where Fields was running all day, making smart decisions on the edge. He could just sit and take a sack, and I'd be okay with that sack. That's fine. That's still running the clock. Like do things on the edge because interior was not working all day.
No. And I mean, it's really tough in the interior, especially when they're willing to play 5 wide with 2 linebackers sitting over the A gaps and the B gaps for crying out loud. Like, it
Mhm.
is not easy to run up the gut in that setting. And it's why you see so many teams that are successful running up the gut at least begin with an outside zone or a wide zone run so that you open up a cutback lane when you get defenders moving. I mean,
Mhm.
we just don't live in a world where we can simultaneously talk about how good these defenders are getting and also hammer the ball up the middle with
Right.
incredible success. And you
Right.
can't do it in college either. Watch a Big Ten game. They are just beating the snot out of each other up the middle, but it's
Mhm.
also loaded with punts because this is not a winning prop. It's not a scoring proposition, right?
What and you look at the whole game. Okay, where did the Bears win? Passing the football, running with Justin Fields. Literally is all we had on offense. And
Oh
then what
yeah.
did they do at the end? It was like, well, let's just grind it out and let's limit the game and whatnot. It's like you went away from the only thing that worked. I mean, the second half they had 4 scoring drives, and then they went really conservative, and that's what you get.
And to bring it back a little bit, there's actually a bunch of things we can say. Maybe I'll work the other one in. But to bring it back to your point about comparing it with the Lions game, I thought Ben Johnson managed this game about as well as he could. There are going to be
Mhm.
all kinds of people that are going to look at this and they're going to say, how do you say that when the Bears turned the ball over 3 times? And I'd look back and I'd say, Jared Goff made some really quirky decisions throughout the first 3 quarters. If anything, this is seeing, and this game was watching an offensive coordinator work around quickly realizing his quarterback did not have it today. And
Yep.
that's, I think, really, really intriguing because every time the Bears lined up to defend a pass, Ben Johnson would work a run in anyways, and they nearly all succeeded. I mean, going
Yeah.
back to first drive, or not first drive, first successful drive, right? 3rd and 5, sitting on the 8 yard line. Bears go with a double 4-eye. So, long story short, everybody, they don't play a nose tackle, right? They don't play
Mhm.
a one tech, a nose tackle. There's nobody in the middle. So, what did the Lions do? They went 5 wide, 3 to the right, 2 to the left, and then they ran a trap run where Goff pitched it to Amon-Ra St. Brown, who imitated Jahmyr Gibbs, sprinted up the middle of the defense. Justin Jones is the only reason it didn't score because he actually wasn't fooled, but they get the first down, end up creating a touchdown out of it. And
Genius.
it was awesome. The fact that at the ending drive, they were willing. One of the other plays that I loved, you talked about Montgomery racing up the hole. My favorite part about that play is that they were at 2:05 with the 2-minute warning looming, and they caught the Bears thinking, oh, it's a 2-minute situation. They got to pass here. No, they don't. And
Nope.
Ben Johnson did not, Ben Johnson wasn't phased by the amount of, like, he was very aware of what he had time for and what he did not have time for. And if anything, just saying, he ran that clinical older brother Madden drive where he actually took his time so that he could bleed the clock down and
Mhm.
make sure he was the only one scoring at the end of the game
What
because
they had 2 10-yard runs on that last drive.
it
I
was
mean, and
awesome.
and I mean, they did the touchdown run, and before that, there was what, 3rd and 2? And they're like,
Right.
"We're gonna run it up the middle when you only have 6 guys in the box." Like, it makes sense.
It was so neat. And it doesn't help anything that when you talk about comparing the Lions game to the Bears running game, the Bears also kept asking Tyler Scott and Darnell Mooney. So Darnell Mooney was an awesome run blocker as a rookie. And I don't know if people just like figured something out or if Darnell lost the will to do it, but he has not been a stellar run blocker since. And
Mhm.
I would love to. There's nothing I would love to do more than praise Darnell Mooney. He's one of my favorite receivers on the Bears, like as a fan, right? But watching number 13 and number 11 keep trying to pin people and not get it let alone when Tyler Scott, in some cases, like we saw in that 3rd and 5, I think it was, maybe it was 3rd and 11 with Roshan Johnson, just whiff and not get anybody. Like, I was surprised at how poor the Bears' perimeter run blockers were at simply finding the man they needed to pick out, right? Like, did you see this? I saw multiple moments of there's a there's a moment where ESB and Cole Kmet block the same guy, and the unblocked rusher steps up, and Khalil
Yep.
Herbert has to juke him in the hole. There's
Mhm.
Darnell Wright on that bash run late in the game, not finding a run lane that
Hope
there
he doesn't wrap.
I'm certain he needs to go through. JT
Yep.
O'Sullivan's certain. It's bizarre. I mean, Feeney is clearly, I think it's Feeney. No, it might be Patrick. Is clearly kicking the guy out. And
Yep.
Darnell Wright just goes around him. Maybe he didn't think he had the gas to get through the hole, but it blows the play up. Like, there were way too many of these just like doy gaffs from the Bears run blocking, and it
Mhm.
just didn't feel tight, right?
Well, the biggest one is the one you talked about with Tyler Scott, where he's coming in to dig out the safety on a run play, and the safety runs away because he's in man coverage with Kmet, who motioned across. There's no one for him to block. If he just turns and gets in the way of the corner, Roshan Johnson might have a 30-yard touchdown run. But instead, he just turns around and looks around real quick, and then Roshan has to, if people remember, it's on 3rd down where Roshan hits the defender right about the first down marker. He fights and goes over the top of him, and then Nate Davis pushes him for a first down. But like, it didn't need to be that hard.
No.
One question is this. So I know we want to be warm and fuzzy a little bit about the Bears defense. They've got, 3 turnovers. The special teams got one, all this stuff. And I talked about on our last podcast that the Lions got 29 points in only 19 minutes of time possession. Question for you, Robert, off the top of your head.
Mhm.
How many times did the Lions punt?
I think I mean, I don't know if they punted at all. Did they punt at all? Did they punt once?
2
Twice?
punts.
Because they turned it
And
over.
like that's the sign of a good defense, right? I mean,
They,
we really didn't stop them outside of them just messing up and turning the ball
well,
over.
okay, you have to count the 3 turnovers. So that's 5 stops. Like,
But I mean, how do you feel good about the defense when
because they got 5 stops. Like, I do hear you. I promise I would love to just wax this defense. Truly, because the Bears being bad and Matt Eberflus getting fired would warm my, not the Bears being bad. The Bears being bad does not warm my heart. But Matt Eberflus finding his way out the door is a direction that I'm definitely leaning towards.
yeah,
And so I would love to tell you that this defense is playing like really badly, but for crying out loud, man, Gervon Dexter, a rookie, knifes through the middle of the defense, tips a ball that ends up floating to Tremaine Edmonds. It's awesome. We're getting big time contributions from him. He beats Penei Sewell for Penei Sewell's 2nd quarterback hit allowed of the season off
yeah.
the edge.
He had a
Then
good game.
later, he clubs, I think it was the center whose name escapes me, Frank Ragnow. Like, he clubs a first round pick center, gets right around him, and nearly ends up with a sack. Like, you got real contributions from
Mhm.
Gervin Dexter, the 1 tech, 3 tech, and defensive end, for crying out
Like,
loud.
do you understand that? Like, who are some defenders that you liked on film?
So on film, I liked TJ Edwards. I thought he was all over the place. It was so funny because I expected to hate Tremaine Edmonds. Tremaine Edmonds has this god awful missed tackle that I think everybody remembered against
On
Jameer Gibbs.
Gibbs on that?
hmm
Yep. Okay.
Outside of that, I thought he looked quick and took away a decent amount of passing game. The biggest problem I had, man, is the Bears just kept calling cover 3. Like, they called cover 3 nearly all game. They would rotate the hook curl defenders, the 2 defenders over the middle for everybody, and they
Yep.
would just push them back like 10 yards deep to where you had you had your 2 corners on the edges. You had your 2 hook curl defenders lined up with them. So that cover 2 line you always see, right? The 5 defenders, basically ducks on a fence, or birds on a fence, like underneath at about 5 yards. They pushed it up to 10 yards, and we're trying to cut off the Lions' like interior stuff. And by the second half, the Lions were pretty comfortable knowing where they could throw the ball. And the
Yep.
Bears' unwillingness to pivot the coverage, like, they didn't run much cover 4, they didn't run much cover 2, they didn't run much cover 1, and when they did pivot to it, most of the time they were successful, and it created a
Mhm.
good down. So it was frustrating to me because I wanted to come out of this game stumping for Tyreek Stevenson, but he didn't really do anything. He didn't have to do anything. He had a really nice run stuff. He walked a couple guys down the line of scrimmage and covered them up. That's great. But
Mhm. He
outside
he
of that,
tackled Gibbs on that, screen pass or he would have scored.
right? Exactly. So there's some stuff that went well for a lot of these guys, but
Mhm.
for a game where Tyreek Stevenson, PFF's going to post that like 25 passer rating against 0
Yeah.
yards given up in coverage. I wanted more than, yeah, they just didn't throw outside.
No, well, they didn't need to because I mean, their offense is Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and in my mind, like, if you like, everyone knows that, so bracket St. Brown, like, literally, if Laporta had 100 yards and the rest of the receivers had another 150 yards and you lost and St. Brown got shut out, I'd be like, "Okay, cool." Like, think of, like, basketball, like, box and one. Gordon, you just follow him everywhere and play whatever coverage you want else. I'd be okay with, but he scored a touchdown. Anytime they needed a crucial third down, he ran an option route. Like, he did whatever he wanted the whole game.
Oh yeah, and they let him. Like the
Mhm.
Bears were willing to just try to make the Lions make 11 plays all the way down the field. And hey, if we wanted to kudos or if we wanted to tip our cap a little in a sense of fairness, the Lions could not muster 11 plays in a row early in the game. I mean,
No.
this was a snake bite day. For nothing exemplified it better than Jaquan Brisker truly accidentally bumping into Sam Laporta on a snap where the Bears had also schemed up a blitz that I don't know if you saw this. The Bears figured something out with the way that the Lions were identifying protections because they got their Mike linebacker, or maybe it's the Will. It's honestly, they switch them, I swear.
Yeah, they switch it. It's
But
however
so
that all line identifies
they
it.
got
Yeah.
TJ Edwards and Jack Sanborn home free on like 7 blitzes. I
Mul
mean,
Yeah, I saw multiple. Yep.
with guys on the other side of the line that were double teaming somebody. So
Mhm.
they would go 5-on-5 blitz and they would get somebody free, which is just if I was talking about the Bear or the Lions, if this was a Lions podcast, I'd say, how'd we let the Bears do this to us? Like
Yep.
this created so much unnecessary pressure. And I'm really interested to see how the Vikings respond to it because now that's on tape. Like now
Mhm.
Matt Eberflus, putting on his Mike Zimmer costume for Halloween and walking into like and using a lot of the elements of sim pressures and other things that come from there. Like now that's on tape. So
Mhm.
I'm really interested to see what teams do against it because the Bears on the back end didn't do anything super neat. I guess they had this like single high safety cutoff crossers, but I don't know. Like you're saying, it's not as if I'm looking at the defensive players and saying, "Man, everybody played so well." It's more
Mhm.
like the defensive line played better than they nearly ever have. We got some contributions from a little bit of everybody. That unit
Yep.
is feeling themselves, and
Pickens too. Yeah. I mean, obviously, Ngakoue is terrible, but
yeah,
yeah, everyone I think had some flashes. I mean, I even saw in coverage. I mean, what you talked about Edmonds. I mean, Edwards too. Like they cut off things. They cover a lot
hmm
of area there. I think Eddie Jackson had a pretty poor game. I mean, I want to put that touchdown to Williams on him. There are a few other plays I think that he didn't do as well on. Jalen Johnson didn't have his best game either.
no,
There are a few things he could have done differently, but um, I mean, in the end, I mean, the Lions, they're a really good offense, everybody,
oh yeah,
and so like that's part of it is that when your D line has some flashes and your defense has some flashes against a really good unit, it's positive. It's just to me like I want to be excited about something defensively after that whole performance, and I can't because like even like why is Montez Sweat playing what 60% of the snaps
oh,
and Aiden
okay, that
Hutchins
one
is
I can
playing
actually
94%.
you're not going to believe this, but I can vouch for that one. Why is Dylan Cole getting reps at Mike linebacker? I couldn't tell you. Why are we rotating Mike linebackers? I don't know. Why are we rotating Terrell Smith and Tyreek Stevenson? No idea.
Yep.
Montez Sweat never played more than about 70% of snaps at Washington either.
Hmm.
He may just be a big dude that needs rest because
Okay.
Chase Young would play the whole game. Montez Sweat would come out, I'd say, 1 out of every 3 drives. And so Matt Eberflus might actually just be covering for his guy in saying
Okay.
like we're platooning him so that he doesn't have to say he's 6'6" and huge frame. It takes a ton of like think physics, right? It takes joules, mega joules of energy to
Oh man,
move
you're
that
getting into
body,
it.
right? And he tires. It would not surprise me, but I don't know if everybody's gonna love that answer.
I mean, and it's quite obvious when he was not in the game because
Oh yes,
Ngakoue would just get launched on and run fits. Rasheem Green played terrible again. Like you want to think about this offseason. I know people want to be excited about, they could sign Brian Burns or any free agent DN. I mean, they're probably not going to be there, but I always think of like when I go on my mock draft simulator, Robert,
Oh yeah.
I'm getting at least 2 edges and before the end of day 2 is done because like we need edge help more than we need interior D line help. And I still would like another D line interior guy.
I think they're gonna have to figure out what Dexter's gonna do. Just because as Dexter's getting faster and faster as a pass rusher, which is awesome, he also had a couple of moments where he got moved with a capital
Yes,
M
he did.
at the point of attack,
Yep.
which we would have expected him to be a little better about. But at the same time, he's a week 11 rookie. You know me. I think rookies get the entire year to just learn. The moment you have to
Mhm.
start counting on rookies, and emphasis on the word have to, not they proved themselves, therefore we trust them. But the moment that you say Justin Jones is really hit and miss, so we're going to play Gervin Dexter because we think he can create some pressure for us, and then you
Mhm.
get smoked at the point of attack, like we would love to see better if we cared about winning. But right now, I don't know, man. It's
Well,
it's
and
such a
Pickens,
complicated balance because, like, if you told me that the Bears have gotten blown out, I'm actually not as down about the coaching staff and the team. I mean, I still don't
mm,
love the staff, right? But this was a game that, from a coaching perspective, you just can't make a habit of blowing 98% chances to win, according to
no,
ESPN analytics. Like,
I mean
that is a really
anyone.
scary thing.
Yeah. I mean, just going back to D line though, Pickens had some nice moments at 3 tech, which is what we talked about, the position he should
What's new?
play.
What,
And
right?
Dexter,
What's
yeah,
new?
like
It
just like make it make sense.
if you told me that the Bears are having issues getting Pickens reps at 3 tech, specifically because they're like 3 tech is such an important position, I'll let you have it. But Pickens' first step is really impressive. It keeps showing up. Like
Mhm.
we talked, maybe you remember this when Jonathan Bullard got drafted, but people couldn't figure out whether he was an outstanding snap jumper or whether he had a really good first step. And we find out later he just got the snap counts and ran with it because
Yep.
his first step in Chicago was just nothing special, right?
Mhm.
Zach Pickens continues to make plays because he is up and moving a half second faster than anybody else. And we love that. That's Bilal Nichols' whole career, like
Mhm.
in
Yep.
honestly ever. And
Which
then
would sorry, which honestly, like if you think of like if you put him at 3 tech and they're stuck on putting Dexter at this 3 tech, to me it might make sense like you get another 1 tech behind Billings, and then you're pretty set on the interior. That could be a vet, that could be, Chris Jenkins, I get excited
it
about from
could be.
Michigan, like one of those stout guys.
So one thing I've been thinking about, I just want to throw this at you and see what you think. This is me speaking to Nick, the coach, right?
Yep.
Are we being set in our ways when we talk about what the 3 tech is? Because the modern NFL, I'm sure you've seen this, Braxton's getting more favorable matchups than Darnell Wright is. Somehow, all of the good pass rushers are on the right. We continue to talk about like how important the left tackle is, and it is, but somehow Nick Bosa, he plays on the right side. Aiden Hutchinson, he plays on the right side. Like
Khalil Mack.
Khalil Mack, he plays on the right side. I mean, you
No,
Daniil
no, no,
Hunter,
no. Why is that? Daniil Hunter plays on
he
the right
plays on
side.
the right side. And it's because for years the good tackle was on the left, so you'd want to square up against the bad tackle. And so
Exactly.
now with Darnell Wright on the right side, you wonder, is that the new premier pass protection position? Because he's drawing all the tough matchups, so clearly he's
Mhm.
in the right spot. Rashawn Gary plays on the right side. I mean,
Yep.
you think it's fake, but you go through the
Well,
schedule and it's
So
all
so
of
I
them.
I so I think it's 2 things. One, just you're talking about, like, where are the mismatches? Like, we talk about this too, like, why we like Kyler Gordon in the slot because you put where's their worst defender, and we put our best player there, and you're
Right.
gonna obviously eat. That's part of it because right tackles are better in run blocking and not as good as pass blocking historically. But then
Historically.
Lane Johnson, right, and some of these other ones, like, if you want basically to be a good passing offense, you need basically 2 left tackles is what they call it. But the other thing is this, Robert, offenses, they're right-handed. More of your runs go to your right, but
Yep.
also as a quarterback, a lot of right-handed quarterbacks throwing to your right is way easier than your left because when if you are on the video, you guys can see if I'm here and I have to throw left, it's tougher for me to see over my shoulder
Right.
pad. I mean, shotgun's a little bit easier, but going back, it's way easier for me to throw to the right. And no matter what, it's easier to throw to the right, even if you're right-handed, despite being able to look either way. So I think having your best pass rusher there, being able to have his hands in the face or get more
Right.
pressure and he has to roll left, that's advantageous for the defense.
And taking this conversation about are we thinking about these things correctly? Because, like you're talking about, there's real advantages to this, but we can get stuck in our ways on what the textbook told us when we were originally learning football or what your first coach taught you, right?
Mhm.
As games get wider, as they start to get more horizontal and they don't really want to just jam things up the A gap anymore. Quick question, honest question. In a standard overfront where you've got your three tech towards the strong side, are you expecting your three tech to be a pass rusher, one gap run defender? Or in modern ball, are you expecting him to have to eat a double team? Like,
Yeah.
has the double team eater moved out in modern running games? Honest question. What do you think?
No, I think so because here's the other part of it that you're talking about is that so like let's say you're like, hey, we have to put um we have to put Zach Pickens at the three tech and Billings at the one tech on this play to be successful. What do teams do? Then they shift, motion, trade, boom. Now all of a sudden Pickens has to be at the point of attack on a double team, and you're gonna just cut off Billings on the backside of a run. Like teams do, that's why they motion and shift their tight ends and their
Right.
receivers so much to make the run fits more advantageous for them. That's the whole point of it. That's why
Right.
you see basketball, drive, kick, then you have a good matchup and you
Right.
have a lane. Like coaches know what they're doing, and that's why they do it. So in my opinion, yes, because you're going to do that because your three tech can't hold up. And that way you can double team up to a backer on a stretch or an outside
Exactly.
zone or whatever. Yep.
And so far be it from me to cape for Matt Eberflus and the way that they're designing positions, but I can't help but wonder if they're almost trying to anticipate a shift towards three tech becoming the point of attack a lot, and they're wanting a huge body like Gervon Dexter that
Okay.
can still handle himself as a pass rusher from that position, but also doesn't necessarily get Justin Jones by default. When he is getting double blocked and combo blocked, because the
Mhm.
more of those that he can hold up against, debatably the better on first and second down, even if you lose just an ooch of juice on third
Mhm.
down. But I don't know. I have
Yeah.
no idea.
No,
Right?
I mean, I think it's a, I mean, if you can be bigger and still be athletic, I think that's the I mean, that's a little why I'm shying away from Newton, the D tackle from Illinois. Everyone's
Oh,
always touting him up. He's very nice, but he's on the smaller side, and I just don't know because what are offenses doing? Offenses are going back to this power run game more because defenses got so light that it was all
and they
this
play so much
horizontal
too
stuff.
high.
Yep, and I think that he won't hold up as much. I still like him as a player,
Oh,
but
sure.
people are like, "Oh, get him at number 5." I'm like, "I can't take him at number 5."
Well, to me, I mean, everybody keeps skipping free agency. We always do this. And if you're going to talk quarterbacks, yeah, skip free agency. Don't sign Kirk Cousins. Every time I bring up signing Kirk Cousins, it is as a joke. That is me saying basically, like, if you were going to, long story short, Nick, in my opinion, if you were going to stick with Justin Fields next year, we're going to get into Justin Fields in just a second. And I am not
Mhm,
some downy hater, right? But if you are going to stick with Justin Fields, I just think you need some kind of veteran that if things don't get better, because this is something you and I've probably not explicitly talked about with Baker Mayfield. You knew who he was after 3
mhm.
years. You knew what he could do, you knew what he couldn't do. You had the nucleus and the core of a player that could run an offense, and what you were getting outside of that, like the creativity, the after play stuff, what balls can you fit into windows that nobody else can? You didn't get more than your standard veteran quarterback, which is what made Baker so frustrating with Cleveland, if that makes sense. Like,
Mhm.
you had a quarterback that basically played like a modern day normie vet quarterback, like the benchmark,
Andy Dalton.
right? Andy Dalton is a
Well,
great example.
a worse version, but yeah.
And so the Browns felt like they needed to move on because they were like,
Yep.
what are we going to do? Commit to Andy Dalton? With Justin Fields, you've got this kid who is playing like A minus to A plus improv football. When you roll him out, when you get him outside the pocket, when he is on the move, he is electric. What we're
Mhm,
getting from within the pocket is, in my opinion, still not quite there. Like, there's
mhm.
just enough where I'm like, oh, it's becoming a habit. If we got a game like Sunday, because this is so important, right? If we got a game like Sunday after 6 weeks of Justin Fields balling and hitting strikes over the middle from the pocket, hitting dagger routes, hitting quick shots, like throwing the ball with a little bit of anticipation to spots over the middle so that guys could run with it after the fact, then a game like Sunday, whatever. It's pretty good defense. Like,
Yep.
they had pressure in his face. We get
Mhm.
over it. Some of this, to be honest, Nick, comes from overreacting because you see a bad habit and you go, that's still there. That's still there. Why is it still there? But also, with Justin Fields next year, I can't help but think you need to either, if you're not drafting a rookie quarterback, I think you need to bring in a floor quarterback that just like he's just gonna be a veteran backup. He's just gonna be a veteran backup. But if things go south, you feel like you
Yeah.
could take this contending team and play hard with it, especially because the argument you would make to the public is, well, Fields gets hurt a lot. So we need a
Mhm.
quarterback that can step in and win us games because we don't know who's going to be the quarterback come playoff time. We hope it's Justin, but we can't say we know. I can't believe we're like we got off topic though. What I was trying to say,
Well, hold on with that though. I
yes.
mean, that's you're not you wouldn't stick with Bajent, assuming that he will progress as your
So
backup?
Bajent ends up in a funky scenario because I would have absolutely expected us to stick with Bajent. I would have, but once you're betting everything on Fields, who you've got all the magic
Mhm.
outside of the system quarterback piece, and you want to see the seeds of your system quarterback just sprout a little. Just show that we've got the smallest flower that we can work with, like within structure. And then if you get that, you don't think you need a backup quarterback. But if you don't, because it's a big bet, right?
Yeah.
The moment you pass on whatever pick you get, you have to commit to Fields. I mean, you're
Yeah.
committing to the guy either way, right? Like whether you're committing to a top 2 pick or you're committing to Justin Fields, you're making a commitment this year.
You are either way. I mean, to me, like that guy, ironically, Robert, you could bring Andy Dalton back because I think he's going to be a free agent. He'd be like a perfect
It
guy
makes
who's
a
a
lot of
vet
sense.
who could help lift the quarterback room. He could teach the young guys, and still you have this floor that you know he's not completely terrible
Mhm.
if there's an injury and he has to start for a prolonged
I
time.
would literally see if I could try to trade Bajent for a 6th round pick or something like that. I mean, just because I think that there's somebody out there.
Man,
I think there's somebody out there that values Bajent a lot, and maybe I keep 3 quarterbacks. It's possible, but I think the team moves in a different direction than we have a young backup rookie. If you don't also have another young backup rookie, if that makes sense. Like if we're going into contender mode. But anyways,
yeah,
all I was trying to say in this is that when people talk about Johnny Newton and others, like we're skipping free agency. The defensive class in free agency is looking pretty good. And
mhm.
granted, we don't know who's going to make it to free agency, but guys like Christian Wilkins, guys like Chris Jones, guys like Daniil Hunter, guys like Bryce Huff, guys like I'm not going to mention Josh Allen, right? The Josh Allen as in
He'll get
Jaguars.
franchise tag to resign.
Like there's plenty of these guys that we could look at. Zadarius Smith could play for his 3rd NFC North team in like 4 years. I mean, there are plenty of help that the Bears could sign
Yeah,
at edge and defensive tackle that honestly has not been market available for
mhm,
quite a little while. And if you
mhm.
looked at these guys as 1 to 2 year solutions, I think you're going to get more out of them than you are going to get out of like drafting a kid. This
Well,
we
it's going
say
to take
this
a
every
while.
year.
Yep.
We say this every year, Nick. You and people like you and me that love offense, that love being nerds, that see the value in offense, are always trying to find an excuse to draft everybody on offense, right?
Yep.
But this is kind of the year for it. Like,
No, it is. It is true. So here's a thought experiment with Justin Fields. Okay. So, because I know we're going to get into him here, I'm sure more. So, what quarterbacks, Robert? Okay, and
yes,
this can be off the top of your head. Okay, and this again, like people like Robert has no idea this question's coming.
no.
So, who knows how good this answer will be? What quarterbacks in the NFL are standalone? Like they're the elite quarterbacks. They're gonna lift their offense, and it really doesn't matter as much the weapons around them. Who in your mind are those quarterbacks right now?
So I'm a big believer that people are not cognizant of how much teammates matter to quarterbacks.
Mhm.
Like we saw Jalen Hurts pop. He's on the Eagles. They are a phenomenal football team. I don't know if there's any better example than what we've seen with Brock Purdy and the 49ers. And by the way, this is to take nothing away from these quarterbacks. If you put Dak Prescott on the Eagles, shockingly, I think he'd be better. Would you believe it? Like if you
Yep.
took Justin Herbert and you gave him receivers that can apparently all they need to do is catch in some of these cases, they would still win more games. Like
Yep.
what I'm building up to saying is that I would argue there's only what 2 guys that are truly independent of the system around them right now, and those are Mahomes and Josh Allen. And
Okay, so
outside of that, I mean, I'm even including, because that's the thing. There are tons of people that
yep.
if you have picked up on what I'm trying to say, that you would say, well, you're not talking, you mean Joe Burrow? And I'm like, yeah, I do. Like, Joe Burrow, as good as he is absolutely at the mercy of who his weapons are. I'm not saying he would go into the Mac Jones tank, but for crying
Yep.
out loud, he's a kind of guy that's going to take 8 to 9 sacks at sometimes in a playoff game. And if
Mhm.
receivers aren't getting open, there's nothing he can do about it. Mahomes has this bizarre and silly wiggle. You swear his speed, like his foot speed, scales independently with what defender is trying to chase him because he's always one step faster than whoever
It's
that guy
so
is.
weird.
It's
It's yeah,
nonsense.
you're always waiting for him to get tackled, but no, so that's exactly kind of my point here, Robert, because so Mahomes and I just have just again, basic stats, everybody. I'm not
Right.
this isn't super well thought out, but, so Mahomes is only point 0.5 quarterback rating better than Justin Fields right now on the year, and we just watched him on Monday Night Football. He
Totally.
struggled because his receivers couldn't catch the ball, I mean, multiple times, and that's frustrating. So you're like, "Well, wait till he gets a supporting cast." It's like, well, if he gets an extra supporting cast,
Right.
who doesn't? You talked about Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is 1.5 quarterback rating better than Justin Fields.
Right.
You have Purdy at the top right now. Tua, people talk about him and it's his weapons. Russ has had a little bit of a resurgence here. Dak Prescott, you had mentioned, but I think he's got some solid guys there. Kirk Cousins, interestingly enough, is fifth. Lamar Jackson, I think he's got some guys
Kirk
around him
was
now.
balling this
Yep.
year. Like,
Yep.
Kirk and Goff are
Oh,
two quarterbacks that
well, golf too. Yep.
everybody decided who they thought they were, but these
Mhm,
guys are playing
mhm.
ball. Because
Yep.
to me, the like ideal quarterback, this is just where I am in my football journey. I'm so ready to be wrong. Like, if things happen that disprove this, like, I'm totally fine with this and I will learn. Right. But it
Mhm.
sure seems like you need a head coach that's a conductor, and then you need your quarterback to be your lead guitar, who's going to mostly play what the conductor told you to do,
Yep.
right? But then every once in a while, you're going to rip off a solo that's going to add to it, right?
Mhm.
Some of the best quarterbacks, and maybe part of this is because of the too high revolution. Man, we are way off topic when it comes to Bears
Oh,
Vikings.
no, this is good.
Like,
Whatever.
maybe part of it is because as the Bears or as teams have shifted towards too high, Bears fan, if you're at least 10 years into watching football, you probably remember that throwing deep was the whole thing as recently as 8 years ago. What
Yep.
happened? Teams were still moving out of this Legion of Boom, Seattle cover three base defense that was playing an absolute hot load of one high. And the
Yep.
best way to break that open was to break it open deep. Then Mahomes happened. You could argue Patrick Mahomes by himself shifted the league towards too high, because if you weren't playing too high, Mahomes was going to cook you, and you were going to end up with games just like we saw where the Chiefs and the Rams squared off in Mexico City and hung 50 points on each other. And defensive
Yep.
coordinators did not want that. So they
Mhm.
started playing these too high quarter shells, and they
Vic
worked to like,
Fangio.
right, Vic Fangio happened. They started to
Yep.
work to pretty decent effect, and people have started to iterate since then. And now, would you believe it? I mean, I'm sure you've seen it. Now the Fangio system's a step behind. Like, the
Yes.
defensive coordinators have been in the lab. They are coming up with some crazy stuff, and it is
Mhm.
awesome to watch what our boy Sean Desai is doing in Philadelphia, as
Mhm.
well as what guys like Brian Flores. There's all different ways to play defense. But what I'm trying to talk about is that as the league shifted towards one high, guess what came back? Dink and dunk.
Yep.
Like, the boring stuff that
Yep.
people that we grew up making fun of, suddenly guys like Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins that will hit the back of their drop and fearlessly throw a ball into a tight window in the intermediate are gashing defenses, because bleeding your way down the field is the new hotness. It's at the
It is.
very least it's meta, right? It's
Mhm.
working. And so
Mhm.
I think it's really interesting watching this realm of quarterbacking, because your ability to play in structure is probably more important than ever right now, right? Like, if Justin Fields was drafted in 2011, do we really have any concerns about whether or not he would have been successful? Because,
Well, I'm gonna debate you. I don't know that you have to play in structure as much because if there is too high, there's -1 in the run game if you're a
yes,
quarterback run, and that's the other thing of why Kyle Shanahan wanted Trey Lance, and that's why these running
totally.
quarterbacks have more lanes because if it's too high, It's easier with underneath. You could buy time and still dump. There's less blitzes that you'll see. That's what made it so frustrating at the second half of that game when Detroit was literally one high the whole time, and all they
Yep.
did was run. It's like
Oh, totally.
make yeah, make Fields have some positive, at least looks or chances to throw the football when you have advantageous situations. And that's kind of what I'm leaning into. So like with all of this, Robert, I there's two scenarios. We already talked about this. You keep Fields, you don't keep Fields.
Right.
But I have this one that just is so juicy to me that Bears fans they argued they didn't like this one. Okay. You trade out of one,
They
let's
didn't
say you
like
go
this
down
one?
to 3 or 5. Yes. Yes. You saw it, right?
No, I don't know if I did. What are you about to tell me?
So again, it's lucky because Marvin Harrison falls to number 4. So we trade down from 1 to 5, okay? And you get whatever else, but you double up and you go Harrison Jr. and you go Brock Bowers. And people are like, "We have a tight end." Have you
Oh,
seen Brock Bowers, by the way? Like this isn't just this is a weapon, and this is a guy that is literally I would say the best tight end prospect I've probably seen. He's Mark Andrews at
yes.
a minimum, I think. And so if you loaded up the amount of weapons that you have, it almost doesn't matter your quarterback because you're going to have separation. You're going to have plays made one on one. You're going to have
Right.
contested catches made. You're going to have everything. The floor is going to be so high and that they're going to be cheap. I mean, DJ Moore, you'll have to pay here sometime soon, but you'll have all these weapons around and Cole Kmet's locked up. These other two guys are locked up for 5 years. That if Fields is where he's at right now, middle of the range quarterback, he'll be upper middle to lower elite tier, and you have the run aspect. What do you
Okay.
think?
Okay, so let's talk about this because I
Mhm.
love the idea. Adding weapons to the team, never a problem. I have a bit of a bone to pick with taking Brock Bowers really high because I don't trust offensive coordinators to use him worth that value. It's the same problem with Jahmyr Gibbs getting taken as high as he is, right?
Yeah.
It's also the same problem I have with nearly any super duper high safety selection because as much as I love Jalen Petrie, the moment that you take him 34, you better hope that teams know how to use him. And
Yep.
then you get a player who's Gumby, he can do anything, and he makes that pick look like it was just perfect in Houston. But that's always a risk, right?
Mhm.
But the main thing I want to focus on here actually is okay, so if we were going to like talk about the quarterback in terms of basketball, do you believe Justin Fields is a point guard?
No.
I think he's a shooting guard.
He is.
Like and that's great. But loading up weapons around a quarterback that calls his own number so often, do you feel like that's efficient?
Well, I think it is because of this. We know that he's not gonna throw into tight windows, so
Right?
he needs bigger windows, and if you
Yes.
have better weapons, this is way better for him than it is if you just have Byron Pringle and whomever else out there.
Yes. But if Fields was a 3,400-yard quarterback for the rest of his career, right?
Mhm.
And you drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. and he becomes an 800-yard-a-year receiver just off of volume. DJ Moore's volume never goes down. He stays a 1,200 to 1,300-yard receiver, and Brock Bowers becomes a 600-yard tight end because he just
Mhm.
doesn't get the ball that often, and Fields scrambles continuously, like into the future. Do you feel like you got what you needed for that? Does this make sense?
I
Like,
if this is the scenario, I feel like the Bears are winning.
you would hope. Right now, they're pulling losses out of wins.
I
Like,
know, but I'm just saying in that scenario, you're probably threatening the defense so much that there's easily yard runs,
right.
plays, and scrambles that are there because they're like, we can't let these guys beat them over the top. Now, again, every player can bust. I'm not saying that these
No,
guys can't
totally.
not hit, but also a quarterback you draft could not hit as too, as we've seen before. So like that's why you have to
Absolutely.
weigh both. To
The
me, like I just look at Purdy, I look at Tua, I look at some of
Oh,
these
yeah.
situations, and I'm like, Goff, if you have all these weapons around them, you could have so many different guys succeed.
But you just named three of the point guardiest quarterbacks in football right
Mhm.
now. And to me, when you stack weapons around a point guard, then the team sings an ensemble song, right?
Mhm.
Whereas when you give Jalen Hurts, who I think plays like a little bit of a shooting guard, like
Yep.
Jalen Hurts will call his own number. So how many weapons do you give him? Three, just three. And most of the
Yep.
time, you're only going to use two, depending
Mhm.
on what like you're doing on or depending on how the offense is going to try to attack the opponent across from them. It's not to take away from anybody. It's more to say that you're either going to play two-man games with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, or you're going to play two-man games with Dallas Goedert and A.J.
Yep.
Brown, right?
Yep.
And then if you don't, A.J. Brown's going to throw a fit and get his way back into the game plan. I digress.
Yeah.
I think, Nick, the argument that I'm trying to make is when I watch this Bears team, especially on games like Sunday, I have a hard time saying that there is a cast issue around Justin Fields. I mean, we saw Equanimeous St. Brown separate on a post. We saw Darnell Mooney create separation over the middle. We saw DJ Moore seemingly get open at will. Did you ever see DJ Moore get stacked? I didn't see DJ Moore get stacked.
No,
You know what I
he played
mean?
well. Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, if you wanna take this team to the next level, to me, like,
Totally.
that it's more because, like, your other alternative is people are like, "Go left tackle," and I'm like, "I think Braxton Jones has earned
Oh, yeah. I mean,
another year left tackle," and, like, I think that's too high for edge, so you can either move down more, but to me, like, even if, let's say, Fields doesn't make it and you surround all those guys, Tyson Bagent, I think, would be very successful.
uh, I think Tyson Bagent is pretty point guardy. So
Yeah,
I'm right there
yeah.
with you. And again,
See, that's what insert
this isn't to
quarterback.
get too obsessed with point guard, shooting guard. It's not that simple. In Fields' case, one thing that kind of scares me, Nick, is Justin Fields comes off of 5 weeks rest, right? And so he hasn't taken hits for 4 or 5 weeks, and he looks crazy fresh. He looks as athletic
Mhm.
as we have ever seen him, and that
Yeah.
is awesome. Would we have looked this fresh if we hadn't gotten hurt? And instead, we had just been piling hits up week after week. I'm not trying to pick at this too hard. I'm more trying to say we saw the best version of Justin Fields.
We
This
did.
to me was the Justin Fields we sold everybody on for an entire offseason. When we
Mhm.
got passionate about this Bears team going 9-8 early in the season, it was
Yep.
with this Justin Fields. But sustainability has to be a question, right?
It does. It does.
18 totes is a lot of totes, and we
Mhm.
avoided 12 some odd hits in those 18 totes, but it
Yep.
means we didn't get away from 6 of them. And I can't help but wonder, because Tom Brady obviously did that thing where he called the league bad, which is unsurprising because it used to be that you could practice your guys to death, and now you can't, right?
Yep.
Unsurprisingly, this has led to bad habits, but also Tom was electric at protecting himself. He played to 44 because he nearly never took a hit. With Justin Fields, I can't help worrying, and worry is the big word. Like, how does this game progress, especially now that Minnesota knows that we're reprising the 2022 offense? What happens next? And I
Mhm.
wrote on our sheet that, to me, this game is darn near all the marbles for Fields
It
because
is.
he is edging his way back into the conversation. I think even the most ardent cynic can agree that this was a really strong game of Justin Fields doing Justin Fields things. And let's put it this way, Nick, in the eyes of 31 other GMs, this is how you make a trade value argument. Like,
Mhm.
you show off this version of Justin Fields and you say, look, the kid can play and the offense is productive because of it. Was there meat on the bone? As I've said a couple times, sure. Are there
Yes.
things that, because the Bears have a number 1 pick, I'm going to pick at? Yes. But if the Bears had the 5th pick and only the 5th pick, Nick, I would not be taking this position because
Nope.
there wouldn't be a road to better. Like, this would be
Mhm.
fine. I
Yep.
would argue Justin Fields is a definitive win with quarterback right
Yep.
now. It's a very different win with than a lot of other quarterbacks in the NFL, but we're not
Mhm.
winning in spite of with Justin Fields, right? We're
Right.
just doing specific things. But man, this Minnesota defense ate Fields alive. And
Yep.
if you try to protect with 8 guys, they will find a way to bring 9. Brian
Mhm.
Flores does not care, and he is going to get a +1 blitz. He's going to get as many +1 blitzes as he can. And I want to know how Fields is ready to handle it. Here's a funny note. Did you catch that on about half of the first quarter drop, or the first half dropbacks, Fields' footwork looked much faster? Like,
It did.
it didn't
I
look so relaxed. It was
I
as
I
if,
almost I
yeah,
almost wonder, Robert, based on, like, how juicy he was, like, athleticism-wise and how his drops were, I almost wonder if he was dealing with something early in the season.
he runs so much, it would be weird if he wasn't. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
Like, with Justin Herbert, let's use this as an example. With Justin Herbert, he can have broken ribs and he can have a major bruise on his left calf. and you may not notice because the way he plays is so pocket heavy that as
Right.
long as he gets decent protection, steps up in the pocket, and continues to sprocket the ball all over the place, you won't recognize that he's playing hurt because it just won't come into play. Fields needs his whole body. To your
Yep.
point, like if he tweaked his ankle, well, you're not going to put it in the injury report, but it might slow you down. And we
Yeah.
did wonder earlier, like, why does he look so slow?
Right.
And the weeks of rest sure looked like they helped him. But as we go, Nick, to build a team that's going to win in the playoffs, right? Does a quarterback that degrades, if that's what we end up with, is that a winning proposition? I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
begging the questions. I am not pretending to have the answers, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah, and I don't
yeah,
know either because I think there's many ways to go about this.
so
I just
many.
think that so many people are just locked into have to get a Patrick Mahomes quarterback that everything else is just gonna be all right. And I'm like, that's just not how it's gonna work in the real NFL. Because there's so many ways that people are winning, including I think we have to have a little conversation about the quarterback we're gonna play on Monday, Josh Dobbs, which is
Oh, man.
such a unique journey he has. So I'm only going to highlight his NFL journey here. Okay. And I'll try to go through this quickly, everybody, but I want you to know and maybe appreciate Josh Dobbs a little bit more, even if he is the opposing quarterback. So 2017 comes out of Tennessee. He's a fourth round pick for Pittsburgh. 2 years later, he gets traded to Jacksonville for a fifth round pick in 2019 after he lost his backup job to Mason Rudolph. Cut by Jacksonville in 2020. So only there for 1 year. Claimed by Pittsburgh in 2020, gets put on IR by Pittsburgh in 2021, then signs as a free agent to Cleveland in 2022, backs up Jacoby Brissett when they're dealing with the Watson suspension. He gets waived after Watson comes back from a suspension. Detroit puts him on practice squad. Then he goes to Cleveland, signs on their active roster, or I'm sorry, goes to Tennessee, signs on their active roster for 2022. Then a free agent again, signs back with Cleveland. Okay. He's been there before and is backing up Watson. Then on August 24th of this year, gets traded to Arizona, starts his first game September 20th or September 10th. Okay. Not long to learn the offense and start. He upset and beat Dallas. Okay. That's one win there. Then he's there for, obviously 2 months, traded to Minnesota on Halloween, October 31st, and then had to play because Jaron Hall got hurt on September 5th. Like
Crazy.
5.5 days later, 6 days later, and leads them to a win. So his numbers when he's been in Minnesota, I think is important because it could be different offenses, obviously, than Arizona. He's averaging 66% completion percentage, 216 passing yards a game. He has 4 touchdowns total, 1 interception. He's averaging 8 rushing attempts for 44 rushing yards a game, 3 rushing touchdowns. He has 6 sacks in those 3 games, 2.5 games ish, and then 6 total fumbles too. So he is a very athletic guy. We're going to see very, very different than what we just saw in Jared Goff. But I think it's just a fun story of a guy that's had a lot of resiliency, having to learn offenses, and he keeps kind of pushing through and he's having some success this year.
It is the most NFL story that you'll see, just about, right? It's like Raheem Mostert.
Mhm.
And I mean,
Yep.
another piece to this, when you look at Dobbs, that I think applies to the Bears too, is there are a lot of teams that do not have room on their roster for developmental projects. I mean, there are 30, probably what, 28, 9, because we would love to say 31. There are always 3 or 4 really awful teams, but there are about 29 teams that Dominique Robinson never would have started a whole year for, right?
Mhm.
There are probably 30 teams that Kyler Gordon does not get to just sit in the nickel and lose for an
Yep.
entire season
Yep.
before figuring things out. Even Tyreek Stevenson. I tend to think Tyreek would have found his way onto the field because I like him. And I think with better coaching, they might have set him up in better spots to succeed. But you can't eat the L's that he's eaten without potentially getting pulled. And for crying
Yep.
out loud, they're putting in Terrell Smith, which is a whole separate story. We don't need to talk about it. But it's just because to me, the other problem with Terrell Smith is he's clearly not fast enough to play outside corner. At least when you just sit him in an off zone, he needs safety help desperately out there.
Mhm.
But so many people see Smith go in the game and the offense just not target him that they're like, Terrell Smith kind of rules. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Joe Smith is fine. But the
Yep.
moment he starts eating targets, because NFL teams will just target the guy they want to. Anyways, I'm off track. Point is that Josh Dobbs has he's got an opportunity.
Yep.
And now that he's winning games, he's going to get more opportunity. He ends
Mhm.
up getting trade. The reason he's in Minnesota, the reason he's enjoying success is because a team traded for him so that they could pretend they were trying. Right? Like the Cardinals in the wake of Kyler Murray. And
Yep.
they just traded for somebody that let them pretend that they were actually gunning for it in the wake of Kyler Murray's injury. And they traded for him as late as possible so that he would have as late as start as possible. And then he goes out and beats the Cowboys and shows that he can run a little bit.
Yep.
Now he's playing like a certain somebody under center for Chicago. And it should be a really new age football game. Looking at
Yep.
the two of them doing it
It
with their
should be.
arm, doing it with their legs. And
Mhm.
the Vikings still don't have Justin Jefferson. So the Bears, I'm really curious how the Vikings are going to go about attacking a Bears defense that's definitely got more teeth than it did last time they met, because Montez Sweat is back and plenty of the players are healthy. But I'm so interested to see how this game plays out.
Yeah.
You got to feel like, I know Bears fans are going to find this hard to believe, but with 6 games left and the Bears now showing that they have the talent to bow up with a 7-2 Lions team, you got to think that this is Matt Eberflus's chance to get a foot back in the door for 2024, whether we like it or not. But you lose this game, and then you stew on, wow, we just lost to the Lions and then we lost in prime time to the Vikings. You stew on that for 2 weeks over the bye, and you come out against the Lions and you lose again. You're 0-11 in your division. You
Yep.
have to think at that point your walking papers are all but signed.
Yep. Yep. No, I agree with you. I mean, this is such a huge game. Also, you talked about this. You talk about the resiliency of Josh Dobbs. We're going to learn something about Justin Fields and his resiliency to bounce back against Minnesota. Against
All
this
the
scheme,
marbles.
I mean, Luke Getsy, his resiliency. I mean, are they going to set him up so they actually have hots? Because there are times in that game I didn't think they had hots. So, just previewing my classic preview here of the Vikings
Mm-hmm.
offense. Now, again, this is tough because, as you said, Robert, some of those games they had Kirk Cousins. Some of those games they had Justin Jefferson.
Yep.
So that way it's tough to kind of just define their offense. But they're the 11th best offense in the NFL, 8th in passing, 26th in rushing. They are a bad rushing team, everybody. I saw a stat. Alexander Madison, I think, it was 10 runs inside the 10 or something like that. He had -5 yards. Like, he is not a good rusher, I don't think at all, but also definitely when he gets near the goal line. In points per game, they're 12th, 13th in third down percentage, 19th in red zone production. Again, that's converting red zone opportunities into touchdowns. And then the defense, they are 12th best, which is shocking to me. To me, like how they've done with the talent they have is like kudos to Brian
It's
Flores.
outstanding. It's one of the best coordinating jobs. I want there to be a coordinator of the year really badly. Like,
Yeah,
we do coach of the year, and the coach of the year award, frankly, doesn't even get voted on well, because we just take the team that we thought was going to be bad, and
yeah.
whoever ends up with the best record off of the team we thought was going to be bad, we hand them
Well,
the award.
Matt
Uh,
Nagy,
Matt Nagy,
Brian
exactly.
Dable. How's Brian Dable doing now? I mean, like, yeah.
Hey, he just won a game with Tommy DeVito. So there is, like, I mean, look, Nick, if we were Giants guys, you and I would be saying, what's Brian supposed to do? He doesn't have a viable receiver. He doesn't have nearly any viable linemen now that Andrew Thomas keeps going down. And Daniel Jones is really struggling on account of it. Like, Danny doesn't have support, but even he's struggling when things are open. What's a coach supposed to do? We didn't give him anything.
Coach of
Like,
the year, man.
I mean, it's there's a whole conversation. Anyways, I won't tangent off of that.
All
Keep
right.
going.
All right. All right. Back to defense. So 12th best defense, 22nd in pressure percentage, which again, we talked about this last time we had this. They don't get home, but they are first in blitz percentage by a margin, everybody. They blitz 47.4% of the time. Second highest blitz rate is 40.1. They are 7.3% higher than even the second highest blitzing percentage team, which is massive. 19th in pass defense. That's how you beat the team that blitzes. They're fourth in rush defense, 25th on third down percentage, which is also not good.
No.
16th in red zone percentage and 15th in points per game. Interesting here. The Minnesota, when they started the season, they struggled a bit. 3 of their first 5 opponents had 21 or more points. The last 6 opponents, only one has scored more than 21 points.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's because the
to
plan is
me,
working.
they're improving, but this is the second time you play somebody, Robert, it's different.
Yep.
And so if the Bears don't have answers for this one, like you were talking about, this is big for Eberflus. If the Bears don't have answers for the blitz the second time you play them, then Luke Getsy, you're done.
Do we get to break
How
out the word unacceptable at
how
that
can you
point?
not figure that out? I mean, it's neglect. I mean, like you're not doing your job.
And hey,
Do your job.
you have to give so much credit. So my favorite stat in here, because it's the most interesting one, right? How is the team that's first in blitz percentage at nearly half of their plays being blitzes, 19 or what is that, 22nd in pressure percentage? It's related because the Vikings are so willing to show you that they're sending guys. Most offenses will pivot to some kind of short throw audible that gets the ball out very fast and
Mhm.
does not allow for a pressure. But so many of these plays, Nick, like a quick throw to the flat off of a spear screen that then the Lions DB jumps in front of and smokes the back for a loss of one or a gain of none, right? That is not a pressure, but it's a huge win for the defense.
Yep.
Their defensive identity. Hey, we want offenses that dictate the terms of the defense. This is a defense that, with nearly no talent on this defense, is
Yep.
dictating the terms to the
They
offense.
are.
You got to respect it,
I
right?
do.
Like,
And to me, like what I'm envisioning is on third down when Fields saw that pressure and Tevin Jenkins blocked 2 guys, which
mhm,
was an amazing job. He tried that and he was
mhm.
somewhat successful because you're not going to just stop 2 guys. And Fields throws it to DJ Moore and he hops on his one leg and then gets free and gets the first down. It was a great play. We need to see more of that.
Have to.
And also, for the love of everything, can we move the pocket this game, Robert? Do you think maybe if they're gonna be blitzing and they think Fields is gonna be here, maybe he rolls out, maybe you have some of that whatever action going on, but move your quarterback so that way they think he's gonna be here and the blitz goes there. Then all of a sudden he has only has to face one guy out here with pressure.
You got to think they're going to try, right? I mean, you have to think they're going to try. It sure helped that the Bears, one thing that seems like it's really struggling is that you would argue that both Getsy and Fields fade really hard as the game goes on right now. Like,
Mhm.
it's totally just me coming up, like talking about this off the top of my head. Statistics may not back this up. But at the early phase of the game, the Bears did not run pretty much any drop back that didn't involve play action. And then as the game wore on, you started to see more and more and more, let's call them normie plays, right? And it doesn't help anything that they rolled out to their left at one point. I don't know why they're quite so obsessed with rolling Justin Fields out to like the left side. He must like it. He must, because they do it all the time. But they keep rolling Justin Fields out to his left, and Brian Branch almost jumps a route to DJ Moore that should be textbook categorically open, but it wasn't because they'd run one too many bootlegs. And then it was as if Luke Getsy said, all right, that's enough of that, and put the bootlegs in the trash because we really didn't see him again for
Mhm.
nearly the rest of the game. And
Yep. Well,
it's, yeah.
well, leaning into that, Robert, I wrote down here all of the passing down and distances against Detroit that
Hmm.
Chicago had. First half, I counted 9, and I'll just call them advantageous downs to pass on. So it's when you think it's probably going to be a run, or it's first down, or it's I have second and goal from the one when they threw it and Tunyon got the Cinderella flag, whatever that was. I mean,
Right.
yeah, you got also there was 9 of them in the first half. Second half, there was 5. So almost 2 times the amount of advantageous downs to throw. And that's when the play action is going to work well. That's when the defense doesn't know if it's run or pass. That way you're going to have better personnel packages, et cetera. So really, again, even when you're throwing the ball, it's not as advantageous in the second half. So that's Getsy more than Fields.
It sure feels that way. And hey, we saw minor improvements from Fields. We saw Fields step up in the pocket for maybe the first time I've just about ever seen it in his career and
Mhm.
reset his footwork in that. We saw Fields get the ball out on plays that would have been just ugly sacks. Like, one thing that I think is weird to talk about, Nick, is it's like Fields has clearly improved as the season has worn on.
Yep.
Fields started like the Tampa Bay game. Don't go back and rewatch it unless you've got like a beverage with you because it is hard to get through.
Yeah.
That can't happen. And it hasn't. We didn't see it the same way for the rest of the year. The fact that we saw it at all is not something I think anybody wants to see again, but
Mhm.
it's I don't know. I'm really interested to see what happens when this stuff comes or like when the blitzes come because I'll tell you what, I thought the Bears offensive line played fabulously. I thought there
Mm.
were some plays looking back when I saw it again where I was like, the Bears line played so well that you almost wonder, could we have gotten more juice out of this offense from a passing perspective? But to your point, maybe that's as much Getsy as it is Fields. I keep trying to operate Nick off of what I'm calling the 40-40-20 chart, which is nearly any time, if possible, I'm going to try to just assign 40% of the blame to the quarterback, 40% of the blame to the offensive coordinator, and then I have like a 20% give where it's like
Okay.
we're going to put a little more on the coordinator, we're going to put a little more on the quarterback depending on where it is, just
Mhm.
because to your point, Nick, we will never ever know. We will
Nope.
never ever know
We won't know.
who drove what action. So,
Mm-mm.
you just kind of have to keep thinking, well, both. And I'll tell you what, I don't know who would do the job. We're losing enough coaches as it is, just due to HR violations. But if we could see this offense with a different offensive coordinator, if we get desperate in our evaluation of Fields, that would probably be helpful just to try to eliminate one more variable
Yeah,
before.
that's fair.
I think you'd probably agree with this. The Bears, at the moment, and especially if the Panthers lose to the Titans. That is that is appointment viewing for every Bears fan. If the Panthers lose to the Titans, the Panthers are home free on not even the number 2 pick, the number 1 pick. Because
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel this way. I think the Cardinals win this weekend.
Well, hold on. I got one other thing
Oh yeah,
about
you're right. We're
Fields
not
and
supposed to get
Fields,
into
and then I'll
draft. It was
get into the
all
draft.
all this to say, if Justin Fields eats 4 sacks in a game against a Vikings team that is going to plainly bring pressure,
Yep.
and the Bears lose, it is going to be hell on Twitter.
Yep.
Like, it was hell enough. I thought Fields did plenty. I thought the Fields that when I keep saying meat on the bone, I'm talking as an evaluator. As a coach, Fields did enough. That is not Fields' fault. It was never Fields' fault.
Mhm.
Fields did plenty. Fields gave Fields gave Tyler Scott a chance at the end of the
He did.
game to go win it for him. Like,
I mean, if he catches that, just imagine how differently everyone would use it. Like, wow, what a clutch pass.
what a
He
clutch
took a
pass.
chance deep. He put it on it, sealed the
Bailed
game. He
the
beat the
Bears
Lions
out
in
of a
Detroit.
position where we would have even said, like, I really thought the Bears were going to lose it, but then Justin Fields
Mhm.
made the play, and it would feel very Washington, wouldn't it? It would be
Yeah.
like
Oh,
he
yeah.
he took a
Exactly.
risk and he converted on it
Yep.
because he's a stud.
Now,
But
one thing that's interesting, Robert, and we talked about this, I believe, early in the season when we got some success against Denver, is Justin Fields' rookie year, second year, and third year all stumbled out of the gates. And
again,
then we've had success the rest of the season. There's been clear jumps in his performance. And whether that's him getting used to, not preseason, didn't play enough, etc. But now, even looking at this game, and then you add in, I mean, there's obviously 5 weeks in between there, his last 4 games, he has above 100 quarterback passer rating.
yep,
So, I mean, again, that's what he needs to sustain. And so this is a huge game for him as well. Like he sustains that, then it's cool. Yeah, we'll
right.
trade out. We're gonna load up this team and we're gonna go.
Right. The book needs to not be out on Justin Fields. There are ways that you can confuse Mahomes. There are ways that you can get after Jalen Hurts, but they will get you back enough times when you try to play to their weakness.
Yep.
Okay, best example I can think of is back when the shift was super legal, like any shift was legal
Mhm.
in baseball. You'd have some hitters where they would play like the shortstop where second base was. They'd play the second baseman basically out in the outfield between the first baseman. You get it, right? Uh,
Yep.
and if those hitters could just hit a few dribblers down the third baseline, then you would get guys to unshift like on you because you'd punish the shift. You would beat the shift with any consistency. You see the same with guys like Josh Allen, where there are ways to get him to turn the ball over. But if he gets you back enough times on those
Yep.
coverages, then you didn't get enough bang for your buck to justify what you or
Mhm.
the risks that you're taking.
Yep.
With Fields, if the blitz is a kryptonite, and I got to be honest, with a starting offensive line playing the way the Bears is, I don't even know if we're going to get like a great view of this because I thought Tevin Jenkins was stellar. I thought
Mhm.
Darnell Wright was so far above expectation. It is remarkable how long he was
Yeah.
able to hold.
Not what
On
PFF thinks, but I mean, film
PFF
wise, I
gave
was
him a
like,
great pass blocking grade. They
yeah,
docked him for run blocking. Like
right.
they gave
But I
him
was
a
like,
70 as a pass blocker,
yeah,
which given how bad that last snap was, that's pretty good
And
because
you're
they
going up
counted it.
against Hutch.
What?
And you're going up against Hutchinson. Like, what are we
Exactly.
talking about? Like he's playing some of the best guys with one arm. I mean, he was a little more healthy, I think, this game, but
I
still,
thought
it's
so.
still not 100%.
No. And so you look at this Minnesota team, and if they just get dammed up, like if they can't generate these free rushers because Tevin Jenkins is going to keep taking two, then like I have no idea what Minnesota's going to do. I really
Yeah.
don't. Because to me, I would call that a perfect supporting cast performance. That's not what Justin Fields needs. That's what any NFL quarterback like
Mm.
dreams of at night. Jared Goff has what we would have expected to be a better offensive line, went up against what we thought would be a worse defensive line, and had to deal with hell back there because that's life in the NFL. D
Yeah.
linemen are good. You don't
Well,
get to let them make three moves.
yeah. Well, and you add in that Minnesota's going to blitz, and their run defense is fourth. So to me, like there's going to be the opportunities to throw, and so I think that's like going to be the big thing. Is like this is going to be kind of a make or break game for a lot of people. This is a huge game. I'm okay shifting to NFL draft order. You cool with that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. So just rest of the season here. So you talked about Big Ten games. You just said Carolina at Tennessee. So Carolina has 1 win, Tennessee has 3 wins. And that is big because you look at Carolina's schedule. I mean, they play Tampa twice, they play Jacksonville, Green Bay, Atlanta, New Orleans. 4 of those games are on the road. I mean, I think this is the most winnable game that they have. Green Bay would be the next one, but I'm not going to really jab them as much here. There are
Yeah.
2 other games I think that are huge for the tank, right? Big tank games. 2-8 New England traveling to 3-8 New York Giants
Go
is
get them,
this week.
Pats. Go get them.
That's big because I don't know who I'm cheering for in that game
Patriots.
because well the Patriots have the Jets still on their schedule, Chargers, Pittsburgh. I mean Denver if you want to throw them in there, they're playing better. But then you have the Giants have the Packers, New Orleans, and Rams. So yeah, maybe Patriots in that one.
To me, the other piece is that I am so bird in the hand about these. Like I
Okay.
know you heard like as soon as the Packers record started to dip, what I have been waiting for, Nick. So in my opinion, to go all the way back to the tinfoil hat days, right?
Yeah.
I still believe that the Bears, as much as they have been incompetent, as much as they have been totally incompetent and continued to be that way in 2023, you will not get me all the way off the idea that they threw that Packers game on purpose. Like back in week 14.
Oh,
It
oh,
it
they had
felt
them.
it felt too eerie because I don't think that so front offices tank. We have a pretty good idea of that. I think coaches can be convinced to once the season is well out of hand, right?
Mhm.
Now, in the Bears case, that's just not going to happen because
Not this year.
you don't convince somebody to tank who's going to get fired. But to
Yep.
use an example, Brian Dable, I'm actually shocked that he went out there and made a statement with Tommy DeVito. Maybe he felt like his seat was a little warmer than he wanted it to be and needed to go get that one extra win and said to himself, we're still going to get somebody up high because these guys just don't do draft prep before, like during the
Yeah.
season, right?
Yeah.
But all this to say that I keep waiting, Nick, for the dam to break on some of these teams, for the Packers to say, screw it, let's just lose, right? And I don't know if every organization even has it in them because Matt LaFleur, his seat is the way you talk to Packers fans, you'd think that that seat is much hotter than like it should be. I mean, I dare you, fire Matt LaFleur, go for it. I dare you. Like,
Well, I mean, the thing is too is that Love's playing a little bit better recently. He had his first 300-yard game, and they're all sunshines and rainbows. Like the Packers, so here's the schedule here. So all of the teams with 3 or less losses. The Packers have 4 games against those teams. Carolina,
yep,
they play. Let's see, Chicago, Giants, and where's the other one? Where's the other one?
I
Maybe it's
can't
3.
believe it's gonna happen, Nick, but
But
it's gonna
but
happen.
they're gonna get wins, and so you know what's gonna happen. It happened last year. Remember, they got this winning streak. They played nobody they played
Yep,
the Rams without Stafford last year, and they're like, they
yep.
won that game. They beat the Bears. Like they're gonna make the playoffs, and then they didn't. Like they're gonna be like a 7-win team, and
I
they're gonna
hope
be
they
have
are.
like pick 14, 15. It's like, go extend Jordan Love. There's one other big game this week too about this tank. Uh Arizona hosts the Rams.
Oh yeah, they do.
And so that's a so they're the other teams, the 3 teams with 2 or less losses, all play teams with 4 or less wins. So we have some good things. One other thing to keep a note here. So again, no matter what happens with wherever the Bears end up, the Bears, there's only 2 teams that are not right now penciled in to make the playoffs that have a better or an easier strength of schedule than Chicago. There's only 2 of them. One of them is Green Bay and one's Atlanta. They both have 4 wins. So even the Bears pick keeps getting easy or higher just based on that easy strength of schedule. So
Right.
there's a scenario, Robert. This is not out there. Let's say New England wins, like you said. Okay.
Hmm.
The Bears have the first and second pick.
Man, that would be, first of all, if the Bears do end up with the first and second pick, there will be no way to convince anybody to keep Justin Fields. Like
I don't
you
know.
you just can't be the starting quarterback
Oh,
that.
I'm sorry. Arizona has to win too, but sorry. I mean,
Right. No, but that's not me trying to be a total stick in the mud. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah.
to me, Justin Fields, unfortunately, we talked about this earlier. You have to have stats and you have to have dubs. Like you just can't lose this many games. It's not fair to Fields. Nothing
No,
about the Bears situation has been fair to Fields. Gotta say
mm-mm.
that. Like
No,
the
it hasn't been.
the Bears have given Fields a chance to show that he can rise above a bad situation this year. I think DJ Moore is that dude. I think the Bears' offensive line is legit gelling. The weird part about this time of the season, do you feel this way, Nick? Is everybody is better than they started the season. Like we're in mid-season form. That's why
Mhm.
this term exists. And the only teams that are falling off are the teams that got hot earlier. I'm looking at you, Pittsburgh. Like the teams that have been overperforming to this point in the season, I would expect them to fall off. But there's what okay, so do you believe in any like anecdotes that you can't prove? Like I haven't done the statistical research, but one thing that I think about is that I tend to think that a team is hungrier off of a loss. And after a win, especially when you're bad, it is hard to maintain the emotional energy needed to win twice, if that makes sense. It's harder to win streak, in my opinion, than it is to kind of go back and forth on accident if you're
But
not very good.
you also get confidence, and then when you lose confidence. I mean, I've had that too, like, "Oh, we suck,"
Oh,
versus,
totally.
"Well, look at us, we're winning games. Look, we know how to win late in games," which
And
Chicago does
RIP
not know how to
Chicago.
win.
RIP
Yeah.
Chicago. That you
Yep,
got to
yep,
think that when Cole Kmet goes on to CHGO and says like I'm tired of moral victories, that's exactly what he's talking about. But
yep.
if you're into the tank, if you listen to this point of the podcast and you're not spitting in disgust at the idea that we're talking about draft position, the Bears just lost, but they lost in really like back-breaking fashion. The Vikings lost a game. You got to imagine they're mad they didn't win.
Yeah,
Like they literally fumbled the game away on more than one occasion. And
mhm,
so the Bears catch a Vikings team that you got to imagine is going to be wildly motivated. And it's a great test for the Bears. It's a great test for Justin Fields. If the Vikings win it, there's this sunshine like on the other side, right? I want the Patriots to win because I don't want this team shack it up, right? I don't want this team to mutter to themselves, our quarterbacks suck. This Drake May kid looks great. Like, what if we just sucked it? Or like, what if we just packed it in? So
right.
the good news is that they're coming off of a bye, right? Yes. And they're about to play Tommy DeVito, aren't they?
So
Because they
the
didn't play
Patriots,
last
yes.
week.
Yep,
Like,
yep,
so they're coming off a bye to play a Tommy DeVito led team that, while they're confident, might have relaxed a little bit, right? Because they finally got that first win in a while. Like
mhm,
you talk about confidence, Nick, but I can't help thinking that there's an aspect of, yeah, man, we're just gonna do that stuff we did last week, and that never works in the NFL. Like
mhm,
they watched the game too, and then on the other side, you got a Rams team that just had this really emotional last second victory against the Seahawks, and now they got to go into an Arizona team that had a back-breaking, we were right there
they were
loss
there.
against
Yeah, they were
Houston.
there.
And I can't help thinking, I know I'm making an argument that sounds like it's all pie in the sky theory. I get you. But I can't help thinking that all of the Bears, like all the teams that you want to win, if you're a Bears fan for draft position, have the emotional edge, right? Like, do
Maybe,
you think
the
that's
Bears
crackpot?
could the Bears too, though?
The Bears are, I can't tell with the Bears, honestly, because
Yeah,
my argument would be with the Bears, they're either hungry as hell or the locker room broke this week.
yeah,
And
they're
I
so
don't know which
depleted.
one,
Now,
right?
Now the one thing, I'm big on this, the rest, okay?
Huge rest advantage.
The Bears played at noon, okay? The Vikings played, I think, Sunday night, right, last week.
Yes, they
So
did.
so they have, a rest
Ton of time.
advantage even though they're playing at Minnesota, so something to factor in. So do you wanna go prediction first or you want me to go?
Let's go prediction. Go for it.
Okay. I am gonna predict I'm gonna predict the Bears win, Robert, which is probably a little shocking. I think they're due for a win. I think that they're playing well. I think Fields is gonna have a good game. I think that the Bears are gonna win, um, 27, to
27.
21. 27 to 21.
Oh, I know. That's a lot of points on this Minnesota defense.
I
Uh,
know.
I think that this game is going to be ugly. That's my overarching prediction. I think it's going to be ugly one way or another. I think that these defenses are going to get the better of the offense across from them. I think the Bears win. I don't know. I'm so tight because in my soul, I think that this Bears team just played too well not to win this game. I thought the same thing going into the Chargers game, though. So my soul is a Bears fan. And any chance it gets to be positive about the team, I usually take it, right? Um, Nick, I don't know where to go on this. I don't know where to go on this. I think
You didn't think I was gonna say they were gonna win, did you?
not 27 to 21. I actually
Yeah.
think the winds feel navy and orange, right? Like the betters loved Chicago going into Detroit. They were right to do so. And
Mhm.
if Justin Fields comes out and he runs like the maniac that he is and he breaks tackles in the open field, the Bears are going to do what they do and they're going to matriculate their way down the
Yep.
field. It's a hyper rushing attack and it
Mhm.
does work. And Justin Fields is still rested. And then he'll get a week off and he'll be rested again to go up against like
Oh,
the Lions.
now now I have a caveat, though. I will flip and give Minnesota the win if Justin Jefferson's playing.
I don't think he is though, right?
I don't I mean, it's still up for debate. I don't know, but if that's the caveat. If he's playing, I'm switching it.
Right. I think this game is erased 20. I think the
Okay.
Bears win it, but we'll see. Josh Dobbs has done crazy things in the past. It's in
Yep.
Minnesota, which
Yep.
I tend to think really helps Minnesota. The Bears have
Mhm.
not played well in Levi Stadium, if memory serves. But no, that's not Levi. Levi is San Francisco. Is this one US Bank?
Yeah, US Bank. Yep.
US Bank. But so I'm so
I mean
undecided,
I mean,
Nick.
you have to think about this too, Robert.
I know.
It's prime time.
I
The Bears
know.
are 2-0 on Thursday night
They
and
are.
then Monday night here,
And
you know?
Justin
So,
Fields is kind of a primetime king, kind of.
yeah.
And so mm, I think I'm gonna go with a sloppy Bears 19, Vikings 16 game. But
Yeah.
I swear, if the Bears lose and embarrass me, I'm gonna be so mad at myself for
You
submitting
both
that as
picked
my
them to win. The Be
what?
well, and it was 19-13 earlier against Minnesota,
Yeah,
so
it
it was
was.
sloppy. Yep. So there you go.
And now they're better. Well, they're. I'm so interested to see what happens, Nick, because
Yeah.
the Lions basically ignored the only piece of the defense that every other offense in the NFL, and I mean all of them, have tried to pick on. They just said, we're not going to go at Tyreek Stevenson. We're going to go at these linebackers instead. And they
It was
did not have an absurd amount of success doing so. They
nope.
even attacked Jalen Johnson. Like they left Tyreek well enough alone, which is
Mhm.
just weird. I don't think the Vikings are going to do the same thing. And I'm really interested to see which version of Dobbs we get because
Yep.
he can be a little helter skelter, but
Yep.
216 passing yards is not none, right?
Mhm.
But this Bears D line has been honest to goodness. I'm so interested because one thing I haven't done any research on. Have you? Has Dobbs running helped their rushing attack?
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know. Let me look quick because, I mean, let's look here. They have rushed oh, yes, I would say yes. And so in the 4 games before he played, their
They were
highest
awful.
their highest team rushing total was 74.
They were awful.
In the 3 games after, they've had 146, 125, 175. So they're gonna run the ball more.
They've been trying to, right? But they've been terrible at it.
Yep.
It was a waste of a down every time they tried to run the ball. We talked about that in week 6. And
Do
so
you
if
do you
if
do you know their lowest total yardage on offense game? You know who it was against this year?
Was it against the Bears? It was abysmal.
220 yards is all they had.
It looked to me, Nick, like they had designed their entire offense around Justin Jefferson. And when he went down, then it looked like they really didn't think he was going to go down until until Wednesday when he got announced out, because that
Yep.
offense that they trotted out looked all over the place.
Yeah. And then the next week they had 452 total yards against San Francisco.
Best game of Kirk's career, maybe?
Hey,
Like,
there
very
hey,
possible.
Bears defense is better than San Francisco. There it
There
is.
it
Lock
is.
it up.
There it is. There it is.
Lock it up.
It's because Matty Roof was such a good coach, right?
No,
Like,
that's it. Yeah. It's the pass rush before they got sweat. That's what it was.
but anyways, we'll see what happens. What a game coming up. I mean, Nick, we've been saying this for a while because the season has felt like it's so dang long, but
Mhm.
this game might go for all the marbles. Like, this game
It
feels
is.
like if Matt Eberflus is going to bow up and make a stand, this is where he's going to do it. And
Yep.
the funny part, Nick, I am going to say something that might be illegal in Bears world, but if the goal was to be in the hunt in December, 2 wins will do it. Now, they've got to get 2 wins against 2 tough opponents. But honestly, Nick, after blowing things against easier opponents, what better way to prove yourself? Go
I
beat a
mean
team that you should be able to punch with anyways, right?
I mean, look at this. It's Dobbs-led Vikings. Then you get the Detroit again, would be tough. Then it's
But you're at home. You're at home against Detroit.
Cleveland. Yeah, you're home. Cleveland with no Watson. I mean, they have a good defense, but their offense is what it is. Atlanta went back to Ritter now, you know? You got, Arizona in Soldier,
I
right?
like them
We'll see how
spicy
that
Cardinals
goes.
though.
And then
Like,
and then and then you got Green Bay. Like, I mean, it's not difficult either.
no. I mean,
So this is a swing game for
I
sure.
am not going to say the P word. I
Right.
won't say
So
it.
so the only thing I'm gonna say here is I know we're wrapping up. Um, everybody, I thank you guys for listening. It's Thanksgiving. Travel safely, enjoy times with your family. That's when I know sometimes it's not always easy with some family members, but try and enjoy as much as possible. And because you never know how many times you do get with these loved ones.
Right. Absolutely. And enjoy the day. Enjoy only as much football as your family wants you to watch. That is a lesson that I've had to learn the hard way.
Mhm.
Is make sure, if possible, because do we know which? Hang on, let me see which games are on Thanksgiving. Because
Aren't there three?
yes, I mean,
That's-
by the way, Nick, here's a question.
Oh,
Here's
oh, I got it. You ready?
yes.
So the early game is Green Bay, Detroit, and then it's Washington, Dallas.
Sorry for laughing.
I know, I know. And then it's San Francisco, Seattle.
That could be fun.
That might be the best game.
That may be the best game. And then, like, I always think it's hilarious when the Detroit Lions are playing every single Thanksgiving. I mean, it's a tradition. I get
It
that.
is.
But I always goes, like, gosh, those years where it was Lions Bears, like, I got to tell you, having to explain to my family again for years consecutively that it was like, no, the Bears are playing on Thanksgiving. I got to watch the game to post game. Like, nobody liked it. I am so glad that I get to just
My
not deal with
my
that.
my best Thanksgiving memory, Bears playing, is Eddie Jackson's pick six to seal it against Stafford. Remember that
Oh
one?
man, that was awesome. Another game. So, if we're gonna talk Thanksgiving Bears recent memories, the Fever Dream game where David Blow hung 1,000 yards on the Bears, but Mitch Trubisky was better was
Yeah.
hilarious. That was nonsense.
I expected such a blowout, and then I'm like, what is this quarterback doing against the Bears? That was a bad game.
It was so funny looking back. They did win, didn't they?
They won, yeah, they won. Yeah, but people came at me because I was like, "Oh, they're gonna blow out. This guy is not a good quarterback." And then ate my words a little bit. You know how
Look at
Twitter
you
always
starting
pulls up
fights.
receipts.
Look at you starting fights on Twitter.
Well, the receipt keepers on Twitter. They're always out there.
Oh yeah, sometimes you just gotta ignore them, right? But have a wonderful, wonderful day. The Bears coaches are still probably positive about this season. The Bears coaches are probably sitting there all week long saying, "Guys, we were right in it with a team that's 8-2, right?" And if you're gonna prove it, Nick, this is how you do it. Gotta
Yeah,
beat
this
the
is it.
Vikings.
This
Hey,
is it. Make or break.
comparing 2 teams really quickly. You got the Bears, you got the you got the Denver Broncos, right? One team was awful. And then they beat the Chiefs. And then they beat the Buffalo Bills. And then they just started stacking wins little by little by little by little.
Mhm.
Even after they lost to the Jets, they were in the tank. They were in the toilet. And they said, we're better than this, and figured it
Mhm.
out. The Bears, somehow, every time, the talent seems to take us into a win that we couldn't avoid. Like, the Bears have yet to win a game that wasn't against the Panthers by not a blowout, right? Like, the
Yeah.
only games they're winning, they are annihilating the team across from them. And then they immediately drop the
Yep.
next one.
Yeah, it's up and down. You know my favorite stat is I always just pulled just to be pro Justin Fields and have a little fun on Twitter is, Fields threw 4 touchdowns against Denver, and everyone's like, "Yeah, but it's Denver's defense." And then I said, Mahomes' 2 games against Denver and Josh
Right.
Allen, they combined for 3 touchdown
It's a
passes.
different defense. They figured something
Right.
out.
They have. They have. And kudos to them for that. I mean, that's again, coaches switching to players' strengths and getting away from weaknesses. So,
Right.
good to them.
Now, as far as the rest of the week goes, do we get your DFS article?
Yeah, it'll come out. Yeah, I'll have to be working at it at, some in-laws, but it'll come out on Friday.
Perfect, perfect. And then, folks, you can find me and Nick live right after the game. We're going to try to make these post games live more often because I think that just makes more sense. So this is me publicly daring myself to get the backdrop ready so that it doesn't look as janky as the last one did. But so beyond that, you guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week. Have a wonderful holiday season. Stay
Mhm.
safe, bear down, and thanks so much for bearing with us.